Thank you, singers. And the soloist on You Raise Me Up was Technical Sergeant Adam Van Almen. And I know that he's already been recognized, but we need to do it one more time because the arranger for The Way You Look Tonight is a former member of the Singing Sergeants and also was a member of the Air Force Band's small ensemble High Flight. So Mark, stand up one more time.
All right, I have 2 more pages of history. Thank you, Glenda, for this. Let's continue with a little bit more history. In 1943, Metropolitan Opera singer Glenn Darwin joined the Army Air Force and was soon transferred to the band at Bowling at the personal request of General Hap Arnold's wife. He became the first professional singer to be recruited by the band and became an instant sensation. He was featured as both a soloist and announcer on almost every program, often with our boys from the barracks to back him up, who were also known as the Glee Club of the Army Air Force. When the war ended, 95% of the band was discharged, including Glenn Darwin. The new band commander, Captain George S. Howard, faced a massive rebuilding task. He was determined to have a separate, dedicated choral ensemble. Thus, the official life of the Singing Sergeants began in 1945 with the appointment of Warrant Officer Samuel Hertz as their very first director. At this point, they were called and would continue to be called the Army Air Force Glee Club. The Army Air Force Band's Glee Club for several more years. It's difficult to pinpoint the exact date when the ensemble became known as the Singing Sergeants, but a press clipping dating back to December 22nd, 1948, referred to the ensemble by this title. Colonel Howard brought in Captain Robert Landers in 1949 to help fulfill the vision of a professional chorus. Although the size of the chorus varied greatly in these early years, membership eventually peaked at 38 singers in the early 1950s. The singers performed for presidents, heads of state, military ceremonies, and officials, international goodwill tours overseas, and toured all 50 states. Fully staged and costume performances of operettas, operas, stage musicals, and concert series here in the DC area, just to name a few of those traditions. After Captain Landers retired, the men's chorus continued to thrive under the direction of Lieutenant Ted Wiltsey, Captain Frank Lockwood, and Captain Robert Kosminski, despite some tough times that caused the membership to drop as low as 12.
We would be remiss this afternoon if we did not mention that with the first vocalist known as the Singing Sergeant, Glenn Darwin, there were to follow 4 or 5 other men brought in to be just a featured soloist at that time, backed up by the chorus. As far as we were able to research and know, 2 of them are still living. One who was a soloist from 1962 to 1966, Ken Carter, who could not be with us today, desperately wanted to, but because of airlines and the shutdown could not make it. And the featured soloist from 1965 to 69, and I don't know, Manny was hospitalized, and was Manny able to make it? He was not. Manny's in the local area, and he was the very last soloist brought in, and Colonel Gabriel had a lot of arrangements just done for Manny, and I was hoping he could be here to be recognized this afternoon. But as history goes on, then came 1973, the biggest change of all, and the look and the sound of the Singing Sergeants was changed forever. Now, under the direction of Captain Robert Kosminski, the first woman joined the Singing Sergeants, and her name was Evan Lewis, now Evelyn Dunn. And following right after her was Nancy Forrest, now Nancy Gleason, who was planning to be here tonight, but we found out yesterday has been hospitalized and now is in rehab. But under the direction of band leadership of Colonel Arnold D. Gabriel, the Singing Sergeants were the first fully mixed SATB chorus in any military branch. Evelyn and Nancy could not be with us, as I said, this weekend, but we are fortunate to have number 3. All the way from St. Louis is Kathy Lawton Brown. And Kathy, please stand where you are. just an aside, Kathy was my very first supervisor. What an encourager and a mentor, but all she taunted me. I'll never forget my very first rehearsal. I signed in on the weekend. On Monday, overwhelmed by my folder. Day 2, overwhelmed with a medley that had to be formed and memorized by that night at the Capitol steps at DC. Kathy was assigned a duet. Kathy had a sore throat. Kathy said, "Glenda, you got it." 2 days on duty, and I'm just saying, "I don't think so, Kathy." Well, the next thing I knew, I was on my way to the concert band rehearsal hall, and talk about new kid on the block. Eyes in, here we go. Thank you, Kathy, though, for your mentorship and your leadership.
So we would also be remiss this afternoon if we did not say that Chief Chapella also had a major part in this change. She was woman number 6 or 7, or as I like to call her, Chief 6'7". This is the only year that that's going to work, because hopefully that dies off soon. Since her friend signed in the same day as her, she eventually became the first female non-commissioned officer in charge of the singing sergeants, and the first woman in any military band to be promoted to the highest enlisted rank of Chief Master Sergeant. She was also the alto for one of our first novel and enduring small ensembles in the Singing Sergeants, the WUSA Quartet, or also known as WUSA. Their repertoire was dedicated to a more contemporary style of music and named after an imaginary radio station. The original men's small ensemble, the Crew Chiefs, along with WUSA, led to more wonderful groups in every genre of vocal music throughout the years. Chief Chapella went on to also become the first female director of operations for the Air Force Band.
Thank you, Joe. And yes, no doubt about it, those first years of trailblazing integration brought challenges, and not all musical challenges. Again, let me share. No uniforms for women in the Singing Sergeants. Didn't exist. So the first two, Evelyn and Nancy, actually needed to sew their own uniforms, which were just black skirts and white tops to begin with, until they could create uniforms for all of us. Adequate bathroom facilities did not exist. So we simply went out and bought $1.50 from locks to put on the doors, and if the lock was there, it was co-ed. I also remember that Aunt Nancy and Evelyn, both being married at the time, were able to live on base. Ladies, you don't know how lucky you are. Those of us who signed in those days, mandatory, live on base for 6 months, with not only an Air Force band commander, but a WAF commander. And the WAF commander didn't like the band. So she gave us all kinds of duties, and which oftentimes fell on rehearsal time. So there were a lot of commander-to-commander discussions, and most of the time I'll tell you, Colonel Gabriel won. Now musically, we really had challenges, and we soon discovered that 24 well-trained tenors and basses can sing very loudly when they want to. So at best, balance was always a challenge. Needless to say, the women read our parts from TTBB music until arrangers like Floyd Worley, Bob Walters, and Mike Davis created SATB music for us. And by the way, Mike is here with us today. I'm going to have him just stand and be recognized. In addition to the new arrangements, as time went on, thanks to the artistic leadership of then OIC and Director of the Singing Sergeants, Captain Bruce Jilks, and Air Force Band Deputy Commander Major Mike Bankhead, we also discovered a lot of new programming options, including choreographed reviews, love duets, and opera scenes that would not have been possible prior years. And then when Lieutenant Craig Jessup became the 8th Director in 1980, we entered the most exciting and perhaps fulfilling stage of the entire evolution of this unit. He was the first director with a strictly choral background, and he immediately set out to mold us into the finest vocal ensemble in the military, if not the country, if not even the world. Our first order of business was to hire more sopranos, and also to fix our balance problem. And then we set our sights on some of the most challenging works in the vocal repertoire. We performed at major choral conventions all across America. with the famed Mormon Tabernacle Choir in Salt Lake City, and produced our own half-hour television special, An American Christmas. Colonel Jessup is our host today, and yes, you're going to see him a little later, but again, he deserves our recognition one more time today. Colonel, please stand. And another important legacy of Captain Jessup's tenure, Lieutenant Captain, here we go. Captain Jessup's tenure is the long list of new choral works by American composers of singing sergeants that we had commissioned. It is a list that our two OICs and directors, Captain Phil Waite and Captain Amy Mills, expanded even more, including works by Libby Larson, Ron Nelson, Norman Dello Gioio, Daniel Pinkham, and many others. And by the way, Colonel Mills, now Lieutenant Colonel Mills, is also in our audience today, and she is the first female OIC and director of the Singing Sergeants, as well as the first female to become the deputy commander and commander of the United States Air Force Band. Ma'am, would you please stand?
Oh, that's my line. Gotcha. While the Singing Sergeants and Concert Band have been a team from the very beginning, we also had the support of amazing pianists, bassists, guitarists, and percussionists to accompany us at the smaller venues, especially military club shows. Most of these performances required a lighter style of music, so the singers would like to share with us some of their current repertoire. They will start with Unclouded Day, followed by the unnamed small ensemble performing It Don't Mean a Thing. So, unless you kind of come up with a name yet? Okay, by the end of the show, it'll happen. Followed by Let My Love Be Heard, Will the Circle Be Unbroken, Little Blue, and closing with A Grand Old Midnight.